By 1984, horror had started looking in the mirror, and what stared back was stranger than ever. The genre was growing louder, more stylish, and far less interested in playing by old rules. Slashers were still filling theaters, but beneath the surface, filmmakers were pulling horror into darker, weirder territory shaped by music videos, industrial decay, fantasy worlds, and practical effects pushed to their limits. This was a year where nightmares came dressed in leather, neon, and heavy shadows. The familiar haunted house was giving way to urban paranoia, surreal body horror, and stories that felt like they belonged somewhere between a fever dream and a late-night concert. Tonight, we're diving into 10 overlooked horror films from 1984, the titles that lived just outside the spotlight while the major franchises took center stage. From the industrial shadows of Europe to the scorched isolation of the Australian outback, these films captured a genre in transition, testing how strange mainstream horror was willing to become.
Fatal Games, 1984. At a small athletic training academy, a group of young competitors prepares for the Olympic trials, until someone starts picking them off one by one with a javelin. The killer stalks the locker rooms and practice fields, turning the world of dedication and discipline into a blood-soaked murder mystery. Fatal Games is one of those movies that feels like it was made on pure genre instinct. It's a slasher with no pretense, no high concept, just a bizarre setup. A gym full of red herrings and a string of oddly choreographed kills. The acting is stiff, the dialogue sounds like it was dubbed from another planet, and yet it's impossible not to keep watching. The film has this strangely hypnotic tone, pastel leotards, echoing gyms, and a synth score that sounds more like a fitness tape than a horror soundtrack. Every scene feels both earnest and slightly off, like a parody that doesn't realize it's one. What keeps Fatal Games memorable isn't tension or gore, it's the sheer audacity of it all. A sports slasher about javelin murders sounds like a joke, but this movie commits completely. It's campy, clumsy, and completely sincere. The kind of tape that turned accidental absurdity into cult longevity. The Company of Wolves, 1984. Neil Jordan and Angela Carter adapted Carter's short story collection into something that defies easy categorization. A gothic fairy tale about Little Red Riding Hood, reimagined as psychosexual coming-of-age horror. The film unfolds as dream within dream structure, where a teenage girl's nightmares explore transformation, desire, and the dangerous allure of wolves, who are also men. Sarah Patterson plays Rosaline with wide-eyed curiosity, gradually giving way to self-awareness and agency. The film presents multiple variations on werewolf mythology through stories told by her grandmother, played with knowing menace by Angela Lansbury. Each tale explores different aspects of transformation. Wedding guests revealed as wolves, a pregnant wolf woman giving birth, a young man whose eyebrows meet in the middle. The practical effects by Christopher Tucker and Rodney Holland are spectacular and disturbing. Transformations happen through snouts, bursting from mouths, bodies splitting to reveal wolves, emerging from human skin, and creatures that are neither fully human nor fully animal. The effects emphasize body horror and violation rather than traditional monster movie spectacle. Jordan shoots everything with lush, painterly beauty, all deep forests, candlelit cottages, and richly detailed costumes. The film operates as fever dream where Freudian symbolism, feminist reclamation of fairy tales, and genuine gothic horror coexist. The wolves represent danger, sexuality, and liberation simultaneously, refusing to be simple metaphors. The Company of Wolves remains polarizing, too art house for horror fans, too horrific for art house audiences. But it's one of the most visually striking and thematically rich werewolf films ever made. Hard Rock Zombies, 1985. A struggling rock band heads to a quiet town for a show, not realizing the place is hiding a bizarre secret tied to a reclusive family with roots in World War II extremism. Things turn deadly fast. After the band is killed, their music literally brings them back from the grave. Now undead, they return for revenge and still plan to finish the concert they came to play. Director Krishna Shah pushes the story far past normal horror comedy limits. The cast plays it completely straight, which somehow makes the insanity land even harder. The villains are exaggerated and cartoonish, including an infamous historical dictator figure and companion portrayed as over-the-top caricatures. The movie knows it is outrageous, and never tries to ground itself in realism. The effects are low-budget and very obvious, with simple zombie makeup and bright stage blood. There are several full music numbers built around original rock tracks, giving the film the feel of a strange horror musical at times. The tone jumps between goofy, dark, and just plain odd, often within the same scene. This is late-night cult movie territory. It is messy, ridiculous, and unforgettable once seen. Not scary in a traditional sense, not exactly polished comedy either, but consistently entertaining for viewers who enjoy off-the-rails horror experiments. The Dungeonmaster, 1984. A computer programmer and his girlfriend are suddenly pulled into a dark fantasy realm by a powerful sorcerer called Mastema. To win their freedom, he's forced into a gauntlet of deadly trials. His advanced computer system transforms into a magical interface, giving him limited tools to survive each stage. Every challenge drops them into a different nightmare scenario. From undead threats to demon-controlled arenas to creature-filled wastelands. Each world has its own rules, dangers, and visual style. Clear all 7 trials, and they go home. Fail one, and they stay trapped. This is a multi-segment fantasy horror film produced through Empire Pictures, with different directors handling different chapters. That structure gives each trial its own flavor and effects focus. The lead plays the hero straight, while the actor behind Mastema leans fully into theatrical villain mode, which adds a lot of personality between segments. Effects are entirely practical and vary by episode. Creature suits, stop-motion animation, prosthetic makeup, and miniature work all show up. One segment even drops into a heavy metal performance setting, giving the movie a very mid-80s genre mashup feel. It's a patchwork fantasy horror showcase, uneven but creative, and a favorite among fans of 80s effects-driven cult films. Razorback, 1984. The Australian Outback is a place where everything can kill you. Heat, thirst, isolation. In Russell Mulcahy's 1984 film Razorback, that danger takes monstrous form in the shape of a giant wild boar, a predator so ferocious it feels less like an animal and more like a nightmare dragged into reality. The story begins with Jake Cullen, a farmer whose life is shattered when his grandson is snatched away by the beast. Accused of murder and left without justice, Jake dedicates himself to hunting the creature, driven by grief and obsession. Years later, journalist Beth Winters arrives to report on kangaroo hunting, but finds herself caught in the crossfire between violent locals and the Razorback itself. When she disappears, her husband Carl travels from America in search of answers. What he finds is a land that doesn't forgive weakness, and a creature that doesn't stop once it has the scent of blood. Carl joins forces with Jake and a scientist named Sarah, and together they face not just the Razorback, but the brutal reality of survival in the Outback. Mulcahy transforms the landscape into something mythic. Sweeping shots of empty plains, jagged cliffs, and burning skies make every encounter with the beast feel inevitable, like nature itself is conspiring against the characters. The Razorback isn't just a monster. It's an embodiment of the wild, unstoppable, and indifferent to human suffering. Though critics were divided on its release, Razorback has grown into a cult favorite. Its mix of stylized visuals, relentless suspense, and raw creature feature thrills make it stand out in the horror genre. By the end, the message is clear. In the Outback, man is never at the top of the food chain. And when nature decides to strike back, survival becomes the only story worth telling. Splatter University, 1984. The film opens with a sequence that sets the tone for the entire production. A mental patient escapes from a nearby institution, murders a professor, and then vanishes into the sprawling, nondescript campus of a local college. What follows is a textbook example of the mid-80s slasher, characterized by a complete lack of ambition and a heavy reliance on the stalker in the shadows trope. It is a work of pure, unadulterated exploitation, aimed squarely at the bottom half of a drive-in double feature. Structurally, the film is a masterclass in narrative aimlessness. The plot, if you can call it that, bounces between the perspective of the killer and the various students and faculty who are destined to become his next victim. There is no central final girl dynamic or complex mythology here. The film simply moves from one kill set piece to the next, with mechanical, almost indifferent efficiency. The gore is thin, the lighting is murky, and the pacing is dictated entirely by how quickly they could move the camera from one location to another. Despite its obvious shortcomings, there is a specific melancholy allure to this kind of bottom-tier slasher. It captures the desperation of independent studios in 1984, trying to capitalize on the waning slasher craze with minimal resources and even less source material. For those who view genre history as an archaeological dig through the forgotten detritus of the 80s, Splatter University serves as an essential, if entirely hollow, time capsule of a trend that had already begun to rot from the inside out. Don't Open Till Christmas, 1984. Set in a quaint English town during the festive season, a masked killer stalks a group of friends as they prepare for Christmas. The juxtaposition of cheerful decorations, twinkling lights, and cheerful carols with brutal murders creates a jarring, unnerving tension. Every corner of the town feels suspect, from empty streets to silent classrooms, amplifying the sense that nowhere is safe during the holidays. The film leans heavily into slasher conventions of the mid-80s, with creative kills and suspenseful build-ups. Characters are drawn with enough personality to keep viewers invested, while the killer's masked anonymity keeps the threat looming. The holiday setting isn't just decorative, it plays into the narrative with gifts, stockings, and festive rituals, becoming ironic symbols of fear. The VHS-era production adds a distinctive texture. Slightly grainy visuals, stark lighting contrasts, and practical effects that feel immediate and grounded. These elements make the tension palpable, as if the viewer is stepping into a snow-covered town where danger could be hiding behind every door. Though not widely remembered today, Don't Open Till Christmas captures the chaotic energy of 80s holiday slasher cinema. Its blend of festive cheer and violent suspense makes it a standout example of how even the most joyous season can mask terrifying darkness. Trancers, 1984. Trancers is a sci-fi action film directed by Charles Band, released in 1984. The film combines elements of time travel, noir, and horror, creating a unique narrative that has garnered a cult following. Set in a dystopian future, the story follows Jack Deth, played by Tim Thomerson, a hard-boiled cop tasked with eliminating a new breed of criminals known as Trancers. The film begins with Jack Deth being sent back in time to the year 1985 to stop the nefarious plan of a sinister criminal named Whistler, portrayed by Michael Stefani. Whistler has the ability to turn people into zombie-like creatures called Trancers, who do his bidding. To combat this threat, Jack must inhabit the body of his ancestor, allowing him to blend into the past while pursuing his target. As Jack navigates the challenges of the 1980s, he encounters a vibrant cast of characters, including a tough-as-nails bartender named Lena, played by Helen Hunt. Their chemistry adds depth to the story as they work together to thwart Whistler's plans. The film effectively mixes action, humor, and science fiction, creating an engaging experience for viewers. The production design reflects the gritty aesthetics of both the future and the past, while the special effects, typical of low-budget films of the era, contribute to its charm. With a runtime of 78 minutes, Trancers packs a lot of excitement into its brief duration, offering a fast-paced narrative that keeps audiences entertained. Trancers explores themes of identity, morality, and the consequences of one's actions across time. Jack Deth embodies the classic noir hero, tough, cynical, yet ultimately driven by a sense of justice. As you watch Trancers, expect a wild ride filled with action, humor, and a bit of existential pondering, all set against the backdrop of a uniquely crafted sci-fi world. Rocktober Blood, 1984. This mid-80s slasher dives headfirst into the heavy metal horror subgenre, following a rock star who seemingly returns from the grave to stalk his former backup singer during a high-stakes concert tour. The film is a frantic, neon-soaked blend of traditional slasher tropes and hair metal performances, utilizing the high-energy environment of recording studios and concert stages to heighten the theatricality of the kills. It perfectly captures the gritty, video store aesthetic of the decade, where the line between a music video and a horror movie was often blurred. Director Beverly Sebastian leans into the satanic panic zeitgeist of the era, playing on the cultural fear that rock music could be a vessel for literal evil. The killer's mask, a haunting, eyeless visage, combined with a pulsing synth rock soundtrack, creates a persistent high-voltage intensity. The film avoids the slow-burn approach of the 70s, opting instead for a rapid-fire succession of rhythmic sequences that mirror the tempo of the soundtrack, making the act of performance feel as dangerous as the stalking itself. For the modern audience, Rocktober Blood is a quintessential find for collectors of 1980s genre deep cuts. It is prized for its earnest commitment to its rock and roll nightmare premise and its unapologetically stylized atmosphere. While it lacks the budget of mainstream slashers, its raw energy and focus on the lifestyle of a touring band provide a unique perspective. It remains a loud, bloody, and thoroughly entertaining reminder of the days when heavy metal was the ultimate soundtrack for cinematic carnage. Decoder, 1984. A counterculture enthusiast discovers that the background music playing in fast food restaurants might be influencing people more than anyone realizes. Curious about how sound affects mood and behavior, he begins creating his own audio experiments, tracks designed to interrupt the steady rhythm of corporate soundscapes. As his work spreads through underground circles, larger forces take notice, leading to a quiet struggle between artistic expression and control. Directed by Mulcahy, the film blends political satire, punk aesthetics, and DIY filmmaking into something both unconventional and engaging. The city streets, neon lights, and industrial interiors create an atmosphere of constant tension. Instead of big confrontations, the story unfolds through mood, suggestion, and the ways people interact with their environment. The soundtrack becomes central to the story, sometimes harsh, sometimes melodic, always tied to the emotional undercurrent of each scene. What makes the film stand out is its exploration of how sound can shape perception. It presents music not just as entertainment, but as a force with the power to disrupt routines and challenge authority. Over the years, this approach has helped the film earn a strong cult following among fans of underground science fiction.
Thanks for watching. If you have your own memories of these films or a hidden gem we missed, let us know in the comments below. We're building this collection together, one film at a time. And remember, always be kind and rewind, because every movie is somebody's favorite.